So yesterday, the iPhone 14 was finally revealed, a new gen of Apple smartphones. The best iPhone ever, according to Apple. But is it really the best? Is the iPhone 14 really as good as the guys at Cupertino say? And most importantly, who should get it and who should wait? Let's talk right now. Hey, what's up? My name is Arthur Weiner, and first, let's take a look at the specs of new products. And the screens are the same, the sizes are the same, the processors are again the same. Almost. 5 GPU cores instead of 4 in the iPhone 13. Yes, even the camera system has remained unchanged. I don't know how Apple will motivate people to update their iPhones, but at the moment, the iPhone 14 looks like Apple needs to sell the rest of the past gen models. And even this theory doesn't make sense, since Apple's range of iPhones is currently as wide as possible. Not only did they ditch the mini model, they added, or rather brought back, the Plus model. And the iPhone 13 is still available, and I'll tell you more. Right now on Apple's website you can order the iPhone 12. The switch from iPhone 12 to 13 model already was questionable. Now, looking at the specs of new products, the transition from 13 to 14 literally doesn't make any sense. And yeah, there will certainly be small software features exclusive for the iPhone 14 lineup, but it doesn't change a thing. For those who already have an iPhone 13 in their pocket, the switch makes absolutely no sense. But nowadays, too few people update their phones every year. Apple understands that and makes only minor changes that make sense only when stacked up. The logic is simple. If you have an iPhone XS, XR, or even 10, you can safely buy the new one. iPhone 11 users can think about upgrading, but not necessarily. If you have recently upgraded to an iPhone 12 or have an already obsolete 13 on your hands, the iPhone 14 will let you down in terms of innovations. But in addition to the base 14 model, Apple did introduce the iPhone 14 Plus. You can ask me, what kind of animal is this? And I have an answer. I think this is the best iPhone in terms of price to quality ratio. Previously, if you wanted to get the largest screen, you were forced to pay extra for the Pro Max model. Now, for less money, you can get those gorgeous 6.7 inches. The display has no always on and retains the same old 60 Hz refresh rate. And the most important thing, the battery has also become larger. Thus, we can safely assume that iPhone 14 Plus will be the new battery life king. The smartphone is also lighter than the Pro Max by as much as 40 grams. To me, the iPhone 13 Pro Max was always too heavy. We even made a video about it. You can watch it somewhere here. And of course, new colors. Apple slightly changed the shade of Sierra Blue from 13 Pro and called it Blue. Not bad. The color palette, as always, looks really nice. Eventually, the colors and sizes are a matter of taste, and it's much more exciting to look at Pro models. It's a brand new iPhone, as Apple claims once again. So, features. The dimensions and weight have not changed much. Okay, 0.8mm taller, 0.2mm thicker, and 2 grams heavier. The all-new body. But seriously speaking, the display has been upgraded. Now, the peak brightness is 2000 nits. They finally added Always On, realized in a very quirky way. It seemed previously that Always On is nothing more than white letters on the screen. Apple has always reimagined the well-known function. It's not just a full black display anymore. Now it's a darkened wallpaper with clock, widgets, and an extremely slow display refresh rate. It would seem that the low brightness and low refresh rate should save some juice, right? Personally, it will be interesting for me to look at the difference in battery life with and without Always On. Has Apple done magic? Let's check ourselves. Also, some YouTubers claim a sharper screen on the iPhone 14 Pro, and the screen resolution indeed got higher because a hole punch has freed some pixels above it. Yet the image shouldn't get much better. And of course, the most exciting update is, drumroll please, the dynamic island. It seems to me that only Apple could call a simple notch redesign with such a fancy name. But this is not just a redesign, it's a complete reimagination of the interaction with the workspace. Now it is a dynamic panel that can have different shapes. Music player, notifications, basketball game scores, lock icon, webcam activation monitoring. All this is really cool, and most importantly, it is now a functional element which which does bring some usefulness to the table. To be fully honest, I have a feeling that when watching content, this cutout will be even more distracting, but I suppose it's just a matter of habit. Like I said before, Apple really reinvented the notch. In fact, this example perfectly demonstrates all the charm of Apple's engineering. I don't know about you, but I really like how the guys from Cupertino bind the software and hardware together. But there is a feeling that this dynamic island will be too dynamic and quickly bore the users. That's something we'll find out, so subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Speaking of truly pro features, first of all, it is worth noting the upgraded A16 Bionic processor, which is not that much better than the previous A15 Bionic. Yes, now the processor is made using a 4nm process. As we know, the smaller the technical process, the greater the performance and energy efficiency, and the processor is really more powerful and uses 20% less power. But we should keep in mind the potential throttling. After all, the experience with the iPhone 13 was very painful in this regard. So I can't wait to test it in Genshin Impact and other games. And of course, the 14 Pro and Pro Max should deliver longer battery life. But I'm not sure whether this is actually the case. Given the greater brightness of the display, the always-on feature, more graphics cores, and overall increased functionality. Well, we'll see it in action. Apple, as always, puts a special emphasis on safety, and in the new iPhones and Apple Watches, the crash detection function appeared. It analyzes your movements and in case of accidents or emergencies, automatically sends a message to 911 or your emergency contacts. Moreover, such requests can now be made via satellite communications. Apple has paid attention to making this function possible without bulky antennas. As a result, new iPhones have a special app which shows in which direction the satellite is. All you need to do is hold your phone in the right direction so the message could go through. This is a valuable addition that you hopefully will never use. And finally, the camera. Apple directly claims that iPhones are often used by filmmakers, so the special emphasis in the Pro model is made on cameras. This update has brought a larger 48-megapixel main sensor instead of 12 megapixel ultra-wide and 12 megapixel telephoto. They got wider apertures and improved low light. Also, sensor shift optical image stabilization got upgraded. And speaking of video stabilization, a dedicated action mode was added. If it works as shown at the event, I'm sold. Shut up and take my money, Apple. Night photography has also been remade. The new processing technology is called Photonic Engine, and it should deliver up to 2 times better low-light shots than the iPhone 13 Pro. According to Apple, of course. Again, I really want to believe. Also, the guys from Cupertino didn't forget about the cinematic mode, which now supports 4K HDR at 30 and 24 FPS. The front-facing camera has received an autofocus, photonic engine, and wider aperture, f1.9 versus 2.2 in the previous gen. This should really give much better, sharper selfies. And that's it. This year it turned out that the regular iPhone 14 does not differ much from the 13 except for the colors, and the A15 Bionic processor taken from the 13 Pro. I personally would not consider it worth the upgrade. However, the 14 Plus model is definitely interesting if you want to feel all innovations. The 14 Pro and Pro Max are the ones to buy. Dynamic Island looks fresh, modern, and really eye-catching. Yet again, we have to test it all out. Some features like 4K cinematic mode, Dolby Vision, and Pro RAW still make no practical sense while the transfer is only wireless. Just give us fast Type-C already. In the meantime, we're waiting for the pre-order on all iPhone 14 models. Click on subscribe button and see you in the next one.